Are you caring for someone that you love, or maybe you are a caregiver across the board, taking care of somebody, a parent even, that is taking care of someone that you love? We take care as parents, we take care, or loved ones, and we make sure that everybody is taken care of. But what about us? What about the caregiver? So whether you're taking care of a child or taking care of your a loved one with dementia, or you are a certified official, that's what you do for a living, caregiver, today we're going to talk about the importance of taking care of yourself, self-care, and what it entails and what could happen if you do not practice this beautiful, loving act of self-love for yourself and for the other person. Because if you're burnt out, who's going to be able to help the person that you love? And so today we have Natali Edmonds. She is a PsyD, and she is just an unbelievable example of how you take an experience and you turn it into a passion to help others. You can find Natali at careblazers.com. I'm sure you've heard all about it. If you are a caregiver, you've probably liked her channel and watch all her wonderful information. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Natali Edmonds is here to do just that. Welcome, Natali, to the classroom. I really appreciate it when you come on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're going to get ready because this is a very hot topic. Like I said at the beginning, whether you are a mother and take care of little kids, or you're taking care of someone you love, or you are a caregiver and this is what you do for a living, we have a tendency as women to take care of everybody else except ourselves. And it is kind of a serious a thing to not love yourself or take care of yourself, because if something happens to us, then who's going to take care of them? So let's talk about what are the reasons why you wanted to talk about this topic, and what are some of the warning signs?
Yeah. And a lot of times people have a negative reaction to this word self care. There's a lot of stigma associated with it, just in terms of even the word self care. It implies it's just care for the self. It feels a little bit selfish. And then there's all these things that pop up in terms of, well, how do I even do self care? I'm so busy caring for the person with dementia. I don't have time to care for the self. And I like to use the term life care because it's not self care. Anything you do to care for yourself impacts your person's life that you're caring for. And so, in many ways, it's the least selfish thing that you can do. But I just think people have talked about self care in many ways in terms of it's the long bubble bath or the vacation or the spa visit. And that's wonderful. If you have that opportunity, by all means, go for it. But life care looks like just taking care of your life so that you can also keep taking care of your loved one's life. And it does not have to be anything that takes up a ton of time. I think a lot of it is truly minding our own mind, what our thoughts are, what we tell ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. And a lot of times we put I work with some of the most amazing caregivers. They're so loving, they're so caring. They do wonderful things for the person they're caring for and make amazing sacrifices. Yet they hardly do a fraction of that for themselves. And if you can just if you could just care for yourself in the way that you care for the person you're caring for, like you're going to set yourself up for so much success, and caregiving will be easier. Not only that, you'll be there for your loved one in a better way. You'll be able to show up in a better way. And this has been on my mind a lot lately because recently in one of we do live events inside of my program, and we get to know our people really closely. We are a family, what's going on, we know who they're caring for, what difficulties they're facing. And one of our members hadn't been showing up in a while, and so, because we're all friends, one of our other members reached out to her, and she got a message reply back from her family that she had passed away from heart complications. And she was in her late 50s, and she was under lots and lots of stress. And it was a wake up call for all of us, but especially the care blazer who had found out that, like, what if? What if all of a sudden that was me? What if all of a sudden
Mm,
I was no longer here tomorrow?
yeah.
What would actually happen to my loved one? And for us, it's our loved ones with dementia, but this applies to any caregiving situation, even if you're a parent. What would actually happen if you were to be gone? And when we start to think about that, we start to realize we are one of the most important factors in the relationship and in life. And it's not a selfish thing. It's the most
Mhm.
unselfish thing if you're actually wanting to be there for somebody you care about. So it's important stuff. And it's not just a foo-foo, it's not a luxury. It's not an optional thing. It's something you actually have to treat as
Yeah.
important as it is.
It's interesting as you were speaking, through my mind was going all the mis the bad advice that we've received or the misinformation that we've received about if you take care of yourself, somehow you're selfish. That this is something that we need to rewrite this programming. And it's so crucial that rewriting the programming that if we take care, if we put ourselves first, we are selfish. And that's what the messages were from childhood. I'm telling you. And we've all been programmed this way. We need a deprogramming lesson. And today, hopefully, so is a deprogramming lesson. And I love how you tied into life care. And so with that in mind, let's talk about awareness because um, many people are unaware that they are in that burnout place and what kind of side effects can come from. You already mentioned the heart attack or the condition that this person that they died. So let's talk about what are some of the signs that somebody is in burnout mode.
So I'll caveat and say that every single person, even if they're not showing these signs and they're not in burnout mode, should
Okay.
absolutely be practicing life care, self-care. They should be
Okay.
doing this now. Like, I don't believe that burnout is a requirement of caregiving. Yes, caregiving is stressful. Yes, there are hard times. Yes, there are going to be more difficult seasons and chapters than others, absolutely. But this level of burnout where not only does your health extremely suffer, but you might feel resentful. You might find yourself being resentful when you hear of other family members or friends having the ability to do something nice for themselves, or being resentful when you hear other caregivers having extra help. And you think in the back of your mind, must be nice, wish I had that. And this kind of like really negative, toxic resentment, I think that's a sign of burnout. I think not being able to sleep, obviously, just, um, I think truly just dreading the days. Like, you wake up in the morning and you're like, "I don't even care. Like, I don't even want to face this day." I think could be a sign of burnout. I think those are some of the big ones that I see a lot. Also, I think looking at what we're doing for ourselves on a daily basis, are we even like the things that we would normally do? We would normally maybe eat a decent lunch. Have we given that up? Are we just hitting the fast food all the time now because we don't even care? Are we no longer keeping up with just basic hygiene? I think is a sign, could be a sign of burnout. So yeah, those are some
Well,
of the biggies.
yeah. And okay, when I hear you talk about resentment can fester into disease. It will be trapped in your body, and that entrapment creates a flow that is not going to end well. And so when you're thinking about resentment, one of the biggest and by the way, for those of you who fall in love with a teacher and you want them back and you have a question for them, you can email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com or text me at 407-373-5959 and send me a question. This is one of the questions that I received, Natalie, of a caregiver that is resentful because they're not appreciated. They
Mhm.
love what they're doing, but the person who is being cared for is abusive. They are combative. And of course they're ill. They have dementia. And so, can you share what that challenge is doing to that individual that is trying to care and is feeling that they don't matter?
Yeah. So it's really important when we are dementia caregivers that we actually understand the disease. And one of the hardest things about being a dementia caregiver is that we are caring for somebody who likely has no idea about the level of care that they need. And in some cases, may not think they need any of it. And so
Mhm.
they might actually resist and push back at any of your attempts to care.
Mhm.
So, all of the energy and sacrifice and care and everything you're doing for your loved one is actually something they are becoming resentful of you for even having to do. And it's a really hard situation. And that's why it's important to know, how do we even start to offer that help and approach it so that they will be more accepting to our help. So number one is to understand their brain is not okay. I like to use the metaphor of a computer. A computer looks like a computer. If you open it up and you take out all the wires and take a couple of chips away and close it back up, it looks like the same exact computer, but it will not function. It will not, the buttons will not do the same thing. And so we have to realize that underneath that person, the wirings are not right. The brain has suffered, the brain is dying. So number one is just to realize this is the disease talking. And number two, resentment is something that always comes from inside of us. It does not come from outside of us. And I know this can be a hard thing to hear right up front, but that's where it comes from. It comes from our thoughts. So if somebody is feeling resentful, it is because they are having thoughts that they should be more appreciative. They should be thanking me for what I do. They should show more appreciation and say, I love you. Somebody should give me more kudos. They're having thoughts like this, that absolutely, if you have those thoughts, you are going to feel resentful. But the biggest recommendation I have is that instead of waiting around for the person with dementia or anyone else to give you the appreciation you're waiting for, which by the way, you could be waiting forever because the person with dementia just does not even have the awareness of what you're doing,
Yeah.
is you have to give that appreciation to yourself. If you knew that you were truly doing a great job and you were in a hard situation and you just appreciated yourself for showing up in such a wonderful way in a hard time to a family member who needs you at their most um, you know hard chapter of their life, then you
Mhm.
can appreciate yourself. And I think this is something where I differ a lot from what's said in the mainstream about how, like, well, people should say things to make us feel better and they should do things to make us feel better. That's great and that's wonderful if it happens, but the majority of time that I've been around and the thousands of caregivers that I've worked with, that doesn't happen all the time. Family members think you're doing it wrong, neighbors have judgments, the person with dementia thinks you're getting in the way of them living their life in many cases. And so you have to be your own friend, you have to be your own advocate. And so you are going to have much more success when you take back the power and you realize, my loved one doesn't even know what's happening and what's going on. They don't recognize it. I appreciate myself for what I'm doing. I'm proud of myself for how I'm showing up. I know that I'm doing a good job. Instead of waiting so always for somebody else to tell us what we want to hear, we can tell us what we want to hear. And it's just as true. In fact, it's more true because it's coming from you.
Yeah, and it's true. Expectations. I remember my sister and I having conversations about a such situation, and she would always say to me, "If you expect, you're going to be opening yourself up for disappointment." And so she goes, "No expectations, no expectation." And so we've had these conversations back and forth where it's me or it's her, and no expectations kind of talk. But it's so important that we understand no expectations. And this is where your groups fit in, where if they're not getting it from their loved ones, can they get it from your group?
Absolutely. Surrounding yourself with really good people who understand and have been in those situations and can be there without judgments. You can absolutely surround yourself in those circles. And the other thing I wanted to add is, if you find yourself in this resentful place where you're like, but they should be more appreciative or they should say thank you more. The the ironic thing is now when you show up from a place of resentment, it shows up in your care. And that person with dementia is going to realize and feel that, and
Mhm.
caregiving becomes more difficult. And then they have more difficult dementia behaviors. It always goes back to the number one step and change to make in any dementia care situation is always going to be you, because you're the one seeking the help. You're the one without dementia. You're the one who's caregiving. So it always has to start with you. If we were, instead of trying to focus on changing the person with dementia, if we focused on changing ourselves first, we would then have so much more success in changing the person with dementia.
That is so many great points for everything we do in life, for
Yeah.
everything we do in life. And there's I do a talk on this, and it was Wayne Dyer was the first one I heard him say, what do you get when you squeeze an orange? What do you get when you squeeze an orange? Well, the answer is orange juice. Why? Because it's what's in them. And so it's what's in it is orange juice. And so the question becomes, what do you get when you squeeze you? When somebody is squeezing you, do you get bitterness, resentment, shouldas and couldas, or do you feel, compassion and love and patience? And those are the things that we need to fill our love bucket with, all those things, so that when these moments happen, we can when we're squeezed, that's what will come out. And
I love that.
preparation of it. But that image of what do you get when you squeeze an orange has always remained with me. And so when we ask ourselves that question, and it doesn't matter where, and what I love about the tips that you're sharing today, that they're transferable in every walk of life. Could be with your boss, it could be with your children, it could be, with your babies, where they can't say thank you yet. And it could be really frustrating. So thank you for all these reminders. So let's talk about how do you choose a support group? Is there a criteria, and how can people join your support group if they wanted to?
Yeah, support groups, I like to say support groups are like any other sort of help or care. There are going to be ones that you really like and you resonate with, and there might be ones that you don't like and that you don't resonate with. The power that I have found in support groups in particular is that number one, you realize very quickly you are not alone. And even those things you are so embarrassed to talk about or to share, like maybe your loved one being super hypersexual or being really dirty and not washing their hands, or whatever those things that you're like, I can't believe this is happening. I'm embarrassed to talk about. You learn very quickly you're not alone and everybody's going through it. And then you can learn from people who are a little bit further ahead, where maybe their loved one has progressed to a later stage or their caregiving journey is over, but they're still in the group. And then you can also be there for people who are just starting to help them out. So this wonderful community of people who are in it um, come together. And I think there's so much healing and power in that. Because for people who aren't in it, I think it's easy to judge that you're not doing it right, or why are you placing them in a facility? They don't seem that bad, or,
Oh,
all these kinds of things. And
yeah.
so I do think a group is very important. You can get support groups in many different ways. You could probably start with a Google search around you. Something you might want to ask yourself is, would you prefer one that's in person or would you prefer one virtually? So, like for me in my program, ours are virtual. We have Careblazers who are all over the world who come together. And for them, it's nice because a lot of them have a hard time leaving their loved one with dementia or finding that time to get away. For other people, they really prefer in person. So, you would want to look online and find something in person. The Alzheimer's Association on their website lists support groups. There's a website called Grief Share that if you're going through grief after your loved one passes away, many of them are totally free or up to $20 for you to join a support group. My live support program is a part of my care course. So when you join my care course, you'll have the option to get live support, which is where every single week we do support groups for spouses and partners, support groups for non-spouse, non-partners, support groups for people who are caring for somebody in the more early mild stage, grief groups. Um, so we do all kinds of various ones depending on what you're looking for. We also do like question and answer sessions, different live events like that. But I promise you there's a support group out there. The one thing that people have a hard time with in support groups is sometimes they'll join and they'll hear the worst of the worst. They'll hear horror stories and it freaks them out and it makes them scared. Like, I'm scared. I'm not in this position yet. I don't want to go be in that position. And I like to remind people it's not a guarantee you're going to be in that position. Everybody is different, but also that might be where you want to seek out. That's why we ultimately created a support group for the earlier mild stage. So when they progress and they're ready to hear about, some of those difficult behaviors and not showering and hallucinations, maybe they can go into those support groups. But in the earlier mild, it's more like, let's just educate ourselves on the disease and how can we set ourselves up for success.
Yeah.
And ultimately just that you connect with the people in there. Like ultimately for our group, it's very informal, but the rule is you have to be respectful and loving everybody without judgment. We're all in different situations. And the minute you're not that, where you're not a part of the group. And we've never had that situation because it's just like the setting of the tone. Um, so yeah, I would highly recommend it for anybody. And you don't have to go all the time. It could be a chapter of your life that you go. It could be once a month. It could be once every couple of months, whatever fits your schedule. I think sometimes people get hung up on it has to look a certain way. Life doesn't look a certain way, and it's okay to be free in how you choose the support group that you want.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now that you talk about grief, I do want to, I do have a personal question. You know, my dad is 93 and his health is failing, and my mom is going to be 90 this year. She's full-blown dementia. Um, doesn't I know she when I call her mommy, she calls me, she acknowledges it, but she really doesn't know who I am. She's a good faker. But she asks for me, and when I tell her I'm Lillian, she goes, "Oh, you're Lillian," you know, so I have fun with my parents still. I make the best. I live in their world when I go visit them. But the reality is, they've been married 70 years, Natalie. And we don't know how much longer my dad is going to last. He has great days and he has not so great days, but we don't know when he's going to take that final breath. So the question is, how does the caregiver address, or the family address a situation where I mean, a long-term marriage, 70 years, although I was with my mom on Sunday and dad, and she kept calling my dad Johnny and Joe, and I mean, not Joe, called him every name of the book but his real name. So it's like, is she not remembering her husband of 70 years? Are we at that point? And it could be that it's been that way for a while, but it's just, she just doesn't, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. How do you, or do you not say anything to the surviving couple, the person who survived? What do you say at that point when they're asking for them?
Okay, so is this question like when the person with dementia asks about their partner who has passed away? What
Correct.
do you do?
Or how, when they pass away. My father's still alive, and I'm not going to mourn that until I have to. And so he is very much alive. And but we know that he's getting more and more frail. And my mom is getting stronger and stronger. She's amazing.
Yeah.
But my dad is not. He's not thriving the way my mom is. And so when he passes away, because it's not if, it's a when, how do we address this with my mom? What
There
is the
is no
best
one
way?
there is no one right or best way. It
Okay.
really depends on your mom, her level of understanding, and her personality and how you want to share it with her. You can absolutely sit down with her and explain the situation of what's happening. It may be she has no idea who your dad is, or
Okay.
it might not even resonate with her because you're saying the names aren't even registering. We don't know. But I think in the beginning, like if it was me, I would share, you know, that that news of what's happened in the beginning. Like, hey, this person has passed away. This is what's going on. Are they going to have a grief reaction, have a hard time with it? I don't know. Probably if they understand what's going on, they probably will, just like you will,
Mhm.
right? Just like any of us would if somebody we were close to and loved passed away. So I do believe it's okay to do that. It's totally a personal decision. Where we have to be careful is if she does not remember that, and then moving forward, she's asking, where's my husband? Where's my husband? Where's my husband? We have to be careful there. We don't want to keep reminding her of what's happened then.
Exactly. Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, because then you're just sending them in grief all
Mhm.
over again. So, you know, deciding how to tell the person with dementia that their spouse has passed away for the very first time, how do you tell that to anybody? It's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, but you do it. If you choose to. I mean, you can also choose not to, but you
But
probably
it's
would do it.
okay. You know what? It's interesting because I really thought you were going to say to me, why cause them to go through grief, even if it's temporary? Why have them go through that grief? Especially my mom, who
Yeah.
remembers like maybe 2 minutes at tops, maybe 2 seconds at tops. If I'm sitting with her for 5 hours and I walk away from her and I come back, she'll ask me, when did I get there? So,
Yeah.
so that's how my mom is right now. And
And that's why
so,
it's such a personal
yeah,
that's why
yeah.
whenever anybody says, how do you tell somebody with dementia somebody has passed away? It's like,
Correct.
well, how do you tell somebody that somebody has passed away? We could take out the dementia part and we could
Okay.
figure out what that's how there is no one right way in dementia care.
Okay.
So if you if you and your family talked and you said, listen, mom doesn't even know who he is half the time. Mom
Yes.
doesn't even remember 2 minutes later. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just not say anything.
Okay.
That's okay too. That's not a wrong approach to do. You can absolutely do that if you feel like it's not even, she might not even notice anything and say anything.
Correct. Yeah.
But
Well,
I
so
think, yeah,
sometimes he's in front of her and he's eating and she's eating across the table and I'll say, "Where's daddy?" And she'll go, "I don't know." She doesn't even know he's in front of her.
right.
So, it's like I don't mean to cut you off, but it's just it's one of those things that what I would suggest to my siblings, because we all have to be in agreement, is that she not be at the funeral, that she not be told, because if she realizes what's happening at the funeral, we can't control what she does. We cannot. And
Yeah,
so do you
that's an option.
would you so you're saying that there's no right or wrong answer. We have to look at the situation of the person that has dementia.
I
And
would say that's my answer for every single question somebody asks me about dementia. Where is that person in their disease state? Well, how
Mhm.
do you think they would respond and react? Do you think they'll even be able, for instance, sometimes people ask me, should I take my loved one to the funeral? I sometimes like to ask, like, okay, well, what's your preference? I always think it's okay to ask, what is the caregiver's preference? Like, you're the one who's going to have to do it and live with it. What would you like? Okay, yes or no? Okay, do they know the person? Has this person been a real person in their life? If they say, yeah, I want to take them. Oh no, that was just a neighbor, a friend from 20 years ago they haven't talked to. Well, maybe you want to reconsider whether you want to open up that heartache and that um that sadness and grief they might
Mhm.
experience. How
Mhm.
do they usually get when they're outside of the house? Oh, well, I take her to the grocery store every now and then, but she gets really anxious and scared about everybody around. Okay, well, then that might be an indication the funeral's not so great. Oh, she's great when she's at the grocery store. She actually likes the seeing all those other people. Maybe the funeral is okay. So we all have to look at these things. It's not just do we take them to the funeral? It's what are they able to understand? How do they do when they leave the house? Is there enough support and family around that's going to be able to attend to her? We have to realize too, as your family, not you're trying to be there to grieve for your own father. Is somebody also going to be okay to care for your mom in the process? Do you want that part of the puzzle as well? For some people, they do. They want the whole family together, but realizing they're going to be attending to the person with dementia at the whole time. And for other people, they just want to go for themselves and be able to fully be present. There is no one right way. And those would be some of the things I would consider. How does she do around the house? How does she do around strangers? How does she do around strange situations? How does she do with, maybe unfortunate news in other regards? I would compile all that together. But whatever decision you and your family make, just stay together and tell yourselves it was the best decision because it was the decision you made at the time. Whatever you do, don't make the decision and then say, oh, well, I think we should have done this. It would have been better. You have no way of knowing. It could have been worse. So that's the worst thing we could do is just make a decision and then guess it. But yes, for some people, sure, tell them their loved one has passed away for the first time, not the
Mhm.
second and third and fourth and fifth every time they ask. You want to take a different approach. And for other people, maybe you don't want to say anything and it doesn't even become anything.
Yeah. My mom still thinks that her mom is still alive. Like she'll ask me, where's my mom? Where's mommy? And I'll say, she's over in California. Or have you seen her? Have you spoken to her? Yes, I have, And so we live in her world. I live in her world whenever she asks for anything like that, because I don't want her to grieve. I remember one time, because my oldest brother passed away when he was 35. And I remember when she was at the beginning stages, her reliving my brother's death. And I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that anymore. It's
Yeah.
tough. It
Yeah.
is tough. And I don't want to be a part of that. And because I saw it, I just thought, I'd rather treat it like my grandmother is still in California and my grandfather died when I was 3. And my mom still thinks right
Yeah.
now that he's alive. Now, she hasn't asked for them in a while.
Yeah.
She hasn't asked for them in a while, but I guess but I know when she can get very, very anxious. So I'm sure that we as siblings will make the right decision and we will all stand together like we have, So it's crazy. So when people are caring, and thank you so much for sharing, because I learned even more every time that you're on, but even more when it affects me personally. So thank you. When you're a caregiver and you're the sole caregiver, how do you establish boundaries? How do you find people to come and help? How do you, what are some of the tips and tricks that you can share for someone who would like some rest and be able to practice life care as you say it?
Yeah, I have 4 simple steps people can follow to just get more help than they ever thought imaginable in their life, and they can do this starting now, and they don't have to have any siblings or any help in this moment. But one of the very first things to do is just to take note of all the things that you do during the day that you don't actually have to do. For example, if I just took a look at my day, I don't actually have to cook my dinner or make my bed or walk my dog, or I technically don't have to be the person to go see my dad or um, mow the lawn, or I live in Arizona, there's no grass, but you get the point. All these kinds of things. Some of them can do with care, take my dad to the doctor. Some of these things can be involved about caregiving, and some of these could have nothing to do with caregiving. Just take note of the things that you do during the day. There's probably a lot that you don't have to. And then I would take note of, okay, could I, is there anything on this list that I wouldn't mind somebody doing for me. So, like, walking my dog is something that takes a lot of time for me, but I love it. I don't want to outsource it. I don't want somebody to do that for me. But cooking food or cleaning the house or running errands or grocery shopping, sign me up. And so then from there, you're like, now you have a list. And so now that you have a list of all these things, I say put it in your phone, get very familiar with it. Then you ask somebody or you ask a resource and you say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to help grocery shop once a week. Do you happen to know anybody? It's literally just picking something off your list and asking them. You make the ask. And then you wait for them to say what they're going to say, and then you repeat the whole process, either with the same thing because they said no or with a different thing. That's it. People get so tripped up that finding help is hard, and that okay, that might be true, but asking for help is not hard. If you can speak words, you can ask for help. And the easiest bonus tip, if you're very nervous about this, would be so many people say, let me know if there's something I can do to help. Let me know. It's like, and we don't even know what to say to that. It's like, now you have your list. Like, actually, I'm really looking for somebody to come sit with John once a month so I can go get my nails done. It'd be really mean a lot to me. Or so that I can run errands and get groceries or whatever the case. Do you happen to know anybody? You don't even have to put that person on the spot. I'm really looking for so and so. Do you happen to know anybody? Oh, no? Okay, well, if you do, keep me in mind. And so many people want to stop this because people say no, or they say yes and then they don't follow through. But stopping it will ensure you don't have the help. You just identify some tasks, you make the like you identify a person or a resource, you make the ask, actually ask that organization or the person, and then you repeat. And you do that for the rest of your life, and you'll have more help than you want. Most people don't know how to help. They don't know what would be helpful for you. Most caregivers don't have a response when somebody lets them know that. Most caregivers don't follow through, and they give up easily when others say no. But you don't have to do that. And simply, I find letting people know your situation and what's going on, a lot of people will offer help. Like, I've talked to Careblazers, like one of my Careblazers loves pickleball, and she's let her pickleball people know that her situation with her husband, and they never have her do the setup or the breakdown of the equipment and the whatever. They just let her go. She gets to go right away, and everybody understands, and they pitch in and they do her part of whatever cleanup is involved in that. And like things like, one of our other Careblazers, her husband passed away pretty recently. She found out in the later stages of her husband's disease that one of her neighbors was a nurse, and as she had to give her husband injections towards the end of life, this nurse came over and helped, and now she built up this community that was around her the whole time, and she had no idea, simply by letting people know what was going on. But if anybody could follow those 4 steps, you would have more help. You just have to manage your mind about what it means when somebody says no or they don't follow through.
Great advice for everything in life, anytime, but we, again, the reprogramming of if I ask for help, I am weak, because we're supposed to be super women. And that is far from the truth. We need to ask for help. And I love that number 4 is repeat, start all over again, and figure out another way that you can get someone to help you with something else. And there's a lot of resources, and I like the fact that you're pointing, you're making the ask in such a way that they can point you towards like a resource. I know for a fact when I took care of my mom for 10 days, while my sister was doing the selling of the house and getting the house clear, we are going to transition them. This was at the beginning. We were going to transition them to assisted living. My sister was doing the main bulk of that, and we had the fun part of taking care of my mom and dad. And I remember, it went a little bit longer, and I had to do my show. And so Robert, my husband's a professor, a college professor, and I had to do my show. So I found out resource asking, through asking that the Alzheimer Foundation, they have people that come and volunteer to sit in your home for free while you're there or while you go out. Are there any other resources that you can share about that people can call and start utilizing these resources that for some cases are free?
Yeah, if you are in the United States, I would highly recommend contacting your local area agency on aging right away. Just type in local area agency on aging. Google will detect which one is in your area based on, wherever you're typing that from. And I would call them up and I would let them know about your situation and ask them, what services do you have that could help me? It could be from like an adult day healthcare facility to home health aides to caregiver support. Maybe there's a stipend, support groups. They tend to be the hub to know what's going on in your community. That would be my first recommendation. If you know the specific type of dementia your loved one has, those specific types usually have a foundation. You could call up, there's usually a number or email on their website. You could call up and ask, like Alzheimer's Association 24/7 support line. By the way, you could call them even if it's not Alzheimer's and get support and, ask them what support groups they have or what services they might have. Lewy Body Dementia Foundation. So there's things like that out there. Google is your friend here. And that's what I would do. I actually do have a fun exercise I just taught some of my Careblazers that
Okay.
might be fun for your listeners to know about, if I
Okay.
can share real quick. So,
Absolutely.
whatever you want to do, like if you have a goal of some sort, it's something called inverted thinking. Have you heard of this?
Mm. It
Here.
sounds familiar. It sounds
Okay.
familiar. Yes, I think there's another name for it, but go ahead. I know
Yes.
it through another name. Go ahead.
Okay. So, let's say, for instance, the goal is to improve my health as a caregiver. Or get more help as it let's stay on the topic of help. How do I get more help as a caregiver? That's the question. Well, we know our brains are wired for the negative. It's so easy for us to, it's too hard to find help. There is no help there. And it's so hard to answer that question because our brain's constantly telling us all the obstacles. Well, inverted thinking takes that out and says, well, let's just start with the obstacles. So if you wanted to get more help in caregiving and in life, the question becomes, how would I make sure that I never got help in caregiving ever again? You would ask that question and then you would make a list. Well, I would never tell anybody that I wanted help. I would never tell anybody I had a loved one with dementia. I'd probably never leave my house or talk to another soul. I wouldn't Google online for resources. I wouldn't reach out to that other person I know was in this similar situation and ask them what they did for help. So you come up with this whole list of like, this is what I would do to absolutely ensure I would never get help. And then on the opposite column, you choose for each one, you say, okay, now what's the opposite of that? What's the opposite of me never telling anybody that I would like help? I tell people I would like help. Okay, this one said I would never tell people I'm caring for somebody with dementia. Okay, what's the opposite of that? I would tell people I'm caring for somebody with dementia. This one said I would never leave the house. What's this one? I might leave the house from time to time, and interact with people. So you all of a sudden you have your solutions, but it started from thinking of like, how would I make sure I never reached the goal? And then you have your roadmap that you can follow. Like these are the behaviors that are in line of me getting more help. And you can do this with health, business, anything you want.
Excellent. That really is excellent information. So with that in mind, I want to take a little break because I could probably talk all about this the whole entire 55 minutes that we're going to be recording. However, I need to address some of the things. So I'm just going to take a little minute to talk about some of the things that are happening in the classroom, and then I'm going to talk to you about what's happening at careblazers.com. So for those of you who want to, like I said at the beginning, if you have any favorite teacher and you want to learn some more and you have some questions, feel free to text me at 407-373-5959, or you can email me at lily@whenyounneedafriend.com. There are so many different ways that we can learn and grow together. And so please go to whenyounneedafriend.com, subscribe. When you subscribe, when you get the blog every week, and you'll know who's in the classroom. Right now, if you're a subscriber, you have all of Natali Edmonds' information, Dr. Edmonds. And so I just want to make sure that you know that this is something that you can do while you're at whenyouneedafriend.com. Please check out everything that's happening. Our next event is on April 6th. It's the I Am the Solution Natural Health Summit. I hope that you come to beautiful Rockledge, Florida, and join us for the event. We're going to have wonderful speakers. It's the Natural Health Summit. This is second annual. This is our second time that we're doing this, and we have some great speakers lined up. So if you would like to go, I'm giving all my listeners, and because of the change that we had to make, $24 off the whether it's a VIP or a regular admission. So enter Lily 001 to get $24 off. There's also other things that we have. We have other events that are there's what is it that you can watch at any time. They're already there for your benefit and your growth. So check those out as well. Check out my sponsors and my Shop Now bag. They're all Lily approved products from head to toe, from makeup all the way to pain management, all natural, all organic, or in a situation where you can make the decision that instead of taking a pill, you take responsibility. And that's how we live our life. This is what we are all about at whenyouneedafriend.com. Also, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation. Sharing this video with your friends, with your loved ones, is a way of you contributing, giving back to the classroom. So whichever way that you can support the classroom, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, all of it is very much appreciated. Now, today we have Dr. Natali Edmonds, and she is the Careblazer leader, the team, that she's the one that lived through and saw all this burnout, all these people day in and day out. And it was so wonderful that you were able to learn where else to take your career, where else to be able to make an impact and do it in a way that you're not compromised by anybody else. Because I know that when I was in radio, there were certain things I could say and when I couldn't say. Now that I'm on the internet, there are certain things we can't say. But when you're in a private setting, you can say pretty much whatever you need to say. So I want to thank you for having that vision to see where there was a missing piece that needed to be filled. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a
Yeah.
dream that I get to do this.
Yes, absolutely. So share a little bit about careblazers.com.
Yes. So at careblazers.com, it's our mission that any dementia caregiver in the world can have instant 24/7 support without having to wait months for an appointment, without having to wait those months and then be seen for just 5-10 minutes and barely get your question answered. So we want to provide education about simple, easy to understand education about what dementia is and how it impacts a person, uh, creative solutions on what to do in really difficult, challenging situations, and most importantly, bring together a supportive community of people going through the same thing so that they can support one another throughout the process and build their own support systems and people that they can call on and rely on, whether it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon or 3 a.m. in the morning. It's been a beautiful thing to see happen with the members of our community. So that's our goal. We offer, 99% of what we do is 100% free. We have a YouTube channel, over 15 million views worldwide, videos released every week about all kinds of topics having to do with dementia. If you go to careblazers.com, there'll be a link to my YouTube channel where you can go watch any of those videos. So if you're somebody who's just wanting to gather more information, that's a nice way to do it on a weekly bite-sized basis. I have a free Dementia Careblazer survival guide. It's over 60 pages of what I consider the most important things for somebody to know to survive the caregiving journey without running themselves into the ground. Anybody can download that for free. There's 2 different versions. One if you're caring for a spouse or a partner, one if you're caring for a non-spouse or non-partner. Those are available for free to download on our website. And then if you're somebody who really is wanting more of that connection, wanting a place to be able to ask questions from various dementia experts and have those weekly support groups and more. We do offer the care course, which you can find out more on careblazers.com as well.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. I think you're doing such wonderful work. Thank you so much, Natalie, for what you do. So
Thank you.
let's talk about you. You had mentioned that there are things that we can do. We can ask. We can go out, go for a walk, do the things that we need to go to the grocery store. But what are some of your favorite that the people that are in your group talk about are ways that they can fill their love bucket? They can fill, they can start the day, start the next day feeling full because they've taken care of themselves.
Okay, so the one thing that we all have in common is because if you've come to me, then you've somehow, understand how important it is.
Mhm.
It's truly being mindful of your thoughts and what's going on in your mind. I call it a thought diet. And sometimes we all, it's the new year, everybody's focused on getting healthy and they're worried about all these diets. No, you need to go on a thought diet. So our thoughts are the most important thing. And whether we realize it or not, what you're thinking impacts your feelings, and what you're feeling is going to impact your behavior. And that's going to impact how you show up to your loved one with dementia. So many dementia behaviors can be reduced or prevented altogether, but it starts with the caregiver's thinking. And so the one thing we all have in common would be recognizing when our thoughts are not serving us, when we're putting ourselves down, when we're being really harsh to our person with dementia, when we're being really judgmental of ourselves, and pausing and asking ourselves, would we tell one of our other care blazers right now the same thing? Would we actually say that to another care blazer in this group? No. Why are we saying it to ourselves? And really it's just raising this awareness. And you've mentioned several times so far in this interview about questioning what we've been taught, like putting yourself last. And there was something else you said in there. And it's like questioning our thoughts is important. Otherwise, you will just keep thinking the thoughts that you have been hearing. And because you have been hearing them, they've become habits. And so they sound like they're normal and they sound totally nice and they sound like it's the right thing, but they're the most toxic thing. So that's the only thing I would say we all have in common is just
Mhm,
being mindful that our thoughts are the most important thing in this caregiving situation. And
mhm.
that's what's going to determine the quality of your life and the quality of your relationship with your loved one and the success you have in caregiving and beyond and when caregiving is over. Beyond that, people fill their cups in all kinds of ways. We have crafters, we have readers, we have people who are strong into faith, we have athletes, we have bakers, we have artists, amazing artists. Sometimes they ship me things like of their artwork. Um, People who are community volunteers, people fill their cups in so many ways. But the one thing that's common is just being aware of what's going on inside of our head.
That is so true, so true. Our thoughts, like you said, thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to action. And if we want to know what our intentions were from the beginning, it's based on our results. If we blow up, then our intention was to, it was a resentful start of the interaction. So when I see the caregivers and my sister and my brother and myself, when we're around our parents, we want to pour as much love, but we're not the ones that are like 24/7 watching. And so it's really easy for us to, like you said earlier, don't let anybody, their opinion, to say that you should or should not do this. If they're not showing up, they have no right to give you an opinion, unless they're sharing something that happened with their parents or something that they understand. But a lot of people have a lot of opinions and what they should and should not do and have no experience whatsoever and are not helping out. So that's one of the things I want to say. The second thing you had said that we had talked about that we have to rewrite the program is asking. Somehow asking is a weakness. So we get to rewrite those programming. That's one of the things that we do in the classroom is rewriting the program. And the what you were saying with the example of the inverted thinking, I do that as well with life. Any thought that you have in mind, I'm not good enough. Well, what's the truth of that? Is that true? It's not true. So what is the opposite? So those are wonderful things that we can do whether we're taking care of someone or not. So
Yeah.
with that in mind, yeah, anything that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, and sometimes the truth is maybe something we don't really like. Like you might think to yourself, "Oh my gosh, that was horrible." And you're like, well, is that true? You're like, well, I'm not a horrible person, but that wasn't a really great way that I handled that situation. And being honest with yourself sometimes sounds like that, but it doesn't mean we have to beat ourselves up over it or think we're like the worst person in the world. Like we can be honest with ourselves in a compassionate way. It's not always like everything we think to ourselves has to be beautiful and lovely. That's not possible. We're human. About 50% of the time, it's probably going to be kind of a difficult thought, but we can love ourselves through those thoughts too.
Absolutely. You know, it's so funny. I mean, I'm just going to make a reference to the Bible. The Bible. We think we should be perfect, but when we think of all the leaders and the saints in the Bible, they were all very flawed people who made huge, huge, huge judgment errors that now we learn from and that now we're benefiting from. So everything is a growth opportunity. And I love the fact that you are so gentle with everybody that comes to your group. And when you speak to us, you're so gentle about being, okay, if you even you were got out a little control, then that's okay. You did the best you could at that time. So, and then we learned from the situation. So with that in mind, one of the things that I know helps me kind of like um, ground myself, recenter myself, and feel connected to a higher power is journaling. Journaling to me is my form of meditation. But what are other ways that people can, without having to go out or go grocery shopping or do their nails or spend money? Let's talk about any form of meditation that do you talk about meditation and what's some of your advice for that?
Yeah, meditation is great. And you don't have to, I think the word meditation brings up different thoughts for different people.
Yes.
So there's all kinds of different meditations. It could be 30 seconds if that's where you want to start. We don't have to be these meditation people sitting cross legged for 2 hours. But, we talk a lot about mindfulness, just being mindful in the moment as you go through the motion. It's really hard to have any sort of frustration or resentment or negative emotion when you're being mindful because then you're just bringing in all of your senses, and you can do this while you're in the middle of a caregiving task. You can notice, if you're helping your loved one bathe, feeling the temperature of the water on your skin, feeling the clothing on your skin, feeling their skin under your hand, smelling the soap or the shampoo. And there's so much sensory information coming on that in every moment, honestly, like every moment is technically okay. It's like our thoughts that make it this really difficult thing. But like in the actual moment, it's like, okay, like I smell this, I see this, I hear this, I feel this. And mindfulness is a wonderful way that we don't have to feel like we have to lock ourselves in a quiet room for 30 minutes to get it. But you can start small on meditation. YouTube is a wonderful resource to just explore different types of meditation. I like visualization a lot where I get to visualize something as I'm meditating. Maybe it's like my future dream home or future vacation or just a lovely interaction I would love. Like that's a beautiful way to do it. But you can do things in your home like being mindful and even meditating or being present could be when you water your plants or as you're washing the dishes or wiping the countertop or, organizing books or reading. Any of these things just kind of a lot of times we're often our thoughts that are somewhere in the future that are really scary and worrisome or in the past of something we wish didn't happen that's, fueling our resentment and frustration. It's like let's in this moment right now, let's stay here. It's one of my favorite things.
I love that. I love that. So, we're almost can you believe it? Our time
No.
together, it just flies. And so I definitely want to make sure that you come back and maybe we can book you before the end of the week or so. But I mean, not to come back, but to have you back. Make sure we schedule a date. For everybody who's listening today, let's say they're just tuning in right now, what would you want the biggest takeaway to be when it comes to being a caregiver? And I love the terminology life care. What are some of the things that you would like to impart wisdom for all of us who are listening to your every word?
You are the most important person for your loved one. Like when it comes to caring for somebody with dementia and you're their caregiver, you're the most important person. And that doesn't mean, and you putting yourself first doesn't come as a detriment to your loved one. comes as a benefit to your loved one. And so that's one of those things that we have to question our mind when we hesitate to do something for our own health. We have to ask ourselves, but what is this really about? Is it really something that's going to take away from my loved one? And question it, because most of the time it is just a lie. It's just probably going to require you maybe to reach out and ask for help, for somebody to allow you to go to that doctor's appointment or to pick up the phone and make that call. And so it's recognizing the importance of your life and then treating yourself like that matters, uh, would be it.
And I liked how you said earlier that if you would talk to somebody that's in a room the way that you talk to yourself, we've got to be mindful of that too, because we're so unaware, Natalie. Sometimes we're so unaware of our behaviors.
Yeah.
And even the most evolved people are unaware of behaviors. And it's just a matter of getting grounded and just being aware that that we are of value. We are of value, and that if you make yourself sick, then who is going to be taking care of that person? That's just a great realization, a great way to end today's class. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much for sharing. This is very dear to my heart. So thank you, thank you, thank you on my behalf. And I'm sure that everybody who's listening to you today will, and in the future, and will also be grateful to you. So thank you for everything that you do. Once again, Dr. Natali Edmonds, and you can find her at careblazers.com. And so, and then if you go to her website, it'll take you to her YouTube channel with lots of information. So, and please remember to subscribe so that you can get that booklet in her channel. So thank you so much, Natalie, for everything that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you for having me, Lillian.
Yes, and please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Natali Edmonds, wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job, good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before